There's power in silence. Most people think that speaking up all the time makes them strong, but the truth is, silence is often your greatest weapon. The way you hold back, the moments you choose not to respond, can protect your reputation, your relationships, and even your future. In this speech, I'm going to share with you 9 situations where silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. And once you understand this, you'll never waste words where they don't serve you again. Silence protects your power because in the moments when emotions run high and the urge to respond feels almost irresistible, holding back becomes the ultimate display of control. People often equate silence with weakness, thinking that if you don't immediately defend yourself, explain, or argue, then you are somehow losing. But in reality, silence is not a lack of strength, it is the presence of discipline. When you refuse to hand over your emotions to someone else, you are showing them that you cannot be manipulated, provoked, or thrown off balance. This is especially critical in situations where others are baiting you to react. They want to pull you into a trap to get you to say something you'll regret or to expose your hand too early. When you stay silent, you hold the advantage because you are not revealing what you think, feel, or plan. You remain unreadable, and that unreadability becomes a shield. Think about the times when you've spoken in anger or frustration. Words come out sharp, sometimes harsher than you intended, and later you replay them in your mind wishing you had kept quiet. Silence prevents those moments of regret. It creates a pause, a buffer, a protective layer that guards your integrity. It's the difference between being impulsive and being intentional. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you send a message, not only to the other person but to yourself, that you are in control of your power. And control is respect. People respect the person who doesn't flinch, who doesn't give their opponent the satisfaction of a reaction. Silence also alters the dynamics in the room. Imagine you are in a heated meeting and everyone is trying to get the last word in. The person who stays quiet, listening, observing, watching carefully, often becomes the one with the greatest influence. Why? Because silence makes people uncomfortable. They start wondering what you're thinking, what you're holding back, and why you aren't rushing to speak like everyone else. That mystery creates authority. When you finally do decide to speak, your words carry more weight precisely because they are not constant. Scarcity creates value, and silence makes your words scarce. There is another layer to this. Silence allows you to collect information. When you are silent, you are listening, and in listening, you pick up on what others are missing. The small details in tone, body language, inconsistencies in their statements. By staying quiet, you are not only protecting your power but increasing it. You are turning silence into intelligence, into insight. You give yourself the ability to see the bigger picture while others are distracted by the noise of their own voices. And let's not forget the psychological effect. When someone tries to provoke you and you respond with silence, it unsettles them. They don't know if you are unaffected, if you are planning something, or if you are simply too strong to be moved. Silence flips the power dynamic because the person who controls their reaction controls the outcome. You are no longer playing defense. You are setting the terms of engagement. The person who needs to talk, explain, justify, or defend is the one losing ground. The person who chooses silence is the one holding the line. Silence protects your power because it is a conscious choice to put your energy where it matters, rather than wasting it in pointless arguments, needless explanations, or impulsive reactions. It shields you from manipulation, forces others to reveal themselves, and keeps your dignity intact even under pressure. It is the discipline of knowing that your strength does not need to be proven with noise. Words can't be taken back because once they leave your mouth, they no longer belong to you. They belong to the world around you. No matter how quickly you regret them, how deeply you apologize, or how much you wish you could rewind time, the impact of those words cannot be erased. They linger in the memory of the people who heard them, they shape the way others perceive you, and they can alter the course of relationships, opportunities, and reputations. That is why mastering your words is one of the most powerful forms of self-control, because unlike silence, which can always be broken later, words once spoken are permanent. Most people underestimate how much weight their words carry. In the heat of anger, frustration, or defensiveness, they let emotions steer their tongue and spill thoughts that were never meant to be permanent. But here's the truth: emotions fade, yet words remain. Think of the times you've heard someone say something cruel or cutting to you, maybe years ago, and even today, if you recall it, you can feel the sting. The person who said it might not even remember, but you do. That is the power of words, and it is why choosing them carefully, or choosing not to speak at all, is often the smarter, stronger move. There's also the reality that words, once spoken, can travel farther than you intended. A private conversation can be repeated, a careless remark can be misquoted, and in the digital age, a single slip can be recorded, shared, and magnified to thousands or even millions of people. That is the danger of underestimating words. Silence, on the other hand, cannot be replayed, cannot be misquoted, cannot be weaponized. It protects you from leaving a trail of mistakes behind. One hasty statement can take years to undo, if it can be undone at all. This doesn't mean that you should never speak or that words themselves are dangerous. It means that words should be treated like tools and weapons, handled with precision. You have the ability to inspire, encourage, and build with your words, but you also have the ability to wound, destroy, and dismantle trust. Because of that, the decision to remain silent until you are certain of what to say becomes a demonstration of wisdom. You are showing that you value the long-term consequences more than the short-term satisfaction of releasing your emotions in the moment. There is also a psychological effect that comes with restraint. When you don't rush to fill silence with words, you give yourself time to think clearly, to assess what is really happening, and to decide whether what you are about to say adds value or simply adds noise. That pause between impulse and expression is where maturity lies. People who can't control their tongue often find themselves apologizing repeatedly, backtracking, and trying to explain themselves out of corners they created with their own words. People who learn to pause and weigh their words rarely need to do damage control, because they already prevented the damage from happening in the first place. Think of high-stakes situations, a negotiation, a confrontation, or a personal conflict. The words you choose in those moments can make or break the outcome. If you speak too soon, too much, or too carelessly, you can reveal information that weakens your position or say something that permanently fractures the relationship. But if you remember that words cannot be taken back, you remind yourself to slow down, to guard your mouth, and to use your silence as a shield until the right words are ready. That discipline can mean the difference between regret and respect. Words can't be taken back, and that truth should not scare you but guide you. It should remind you to treat communication as a responsibility, to never underestimate the ripple effect of what you say, and to recognize that silence is always an option when words are not yet ready. By respecting the permanence of your words, you elevate their value and you protect your own credibility. Not every reaction deserves your response, because not every situation or person is worthy of your energy, your time, or your words. The truth is, some people thrive on pulling you into their drama. They bait you with comments, provoke you with criticism, and wait for you to engage so they can feed off the conflict. The moment you respond, you give them exactly what they wanted, your attention. And attention is power. By refusing to engage, you deny them that power, and instead, you keep it for yourself. This isn't about being passive or weak. It's about being strategic enough to recognize when silence serves you more than speaking does. Every day, you will encounter situations where people want a reaction from you. It could be someone insulting you, a coworker challenging you, or a stranger trying to spark an argument. The temptation is always there to jump in and defend yourself, to prove them wrong, to shut them down. But what's the cost of that reaction? Often it's wasted energy, heightened tension, or even damage to your own peace of mind. Sometimes by responding, you escalate something that could have quietly faded away. Not every situation deserves to grow, and you are the one who decides whether it does. When you choose not to respond, you are not letting someone win. That's a misconception people cling to. Silence is not surrender, it's strategy. By not engaging, you show that the other person is not significant enough to pull you off your path. Think of it this way: if someone throws mud at you and you throw it back, you both end up dirty. But if you refuse to pick it up, the only one standing clean is you. That's the power of not responding. You protect your dignity and show that you will not lower yourself to a level that doesn't deserve you. There's also a psychological layer to this. People who seek conflict or validation through arguments become unsettled when they don't get a response. Your silence forces them to sit with their own words. They may become frustrated, confused, or even embarrassed because you did not give them the satisfaction of a reaction. That lack of response is often more powerful than anything you could have said because it leaves them questioning themselves instead of fueling their narrative. In this way, silence turns the table. It makes them carry the weight of their own behavior. Another element to remember is that your response is your investment. Every time you react, you're investing energy into that person or situation. Ask yourself, is this investment worth it? Is this argument going to change anything? Is this person even open to hearing my perspective, or do they simply want to fight? If the answer is no, then why give them your words? Your silence communicates louder than any response ever could. It communicates that you will not waste your value where it isn't appreciated. Even in professional settings, this principle holds true. There will always be people who test you, undermine you, or throw small jabs to provoke a reaction. If you respond impulsively, you risk appearing defensive, emotional, or unprofessional. But if you remain calm and composed, you send a different message. You show that you cannot be rattled, that you choose your battles wisely, and that your focus remains on what truly matters. Over time, people respect the person who doesn't flinch at every provocation because it demonstrates maturity, strength, and self-control. Not every reaction deserves your response because not every person has earned the right to your words. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to defend yourself at every turn, and you certainly don't need to let others dictate your emotional state. By choosing silence in these moments, you elevate yourself above the noise. You refuse to be dragged into unnecessary battles, and you remind yourself that your peace of mind is more valuable than winning an argument that never mattered in the first place. Silence reveals more than speaking because in the moments when you choose to hold back, people reveal themselves. When you step out of the noise and decide not to fill the space with your words, you give others room to expose who they are, what they think, and how they operate. Most people are uncomfortable with silence. They rush to fill it with chatter, with explanations, with admissions they didn't mean to give away. Your silence acts like a mirror. It reflects back their true nature, and in that reflection, you learn everything you need to know without having said a single word. When you're in a conversation, especially one that feels tense or strategic, silence is one of the most powerful tools at your disposal. Instead of responding immediately, let the pause linger. That pause makes the other person uneasy, and in that discomfort, they often keep talking. The more they talk, the more they reveal. They might disclose information they didn't plan to share, soften their stance, or contradict themselves. All of this happens because you chose to remain silent and let them fill the space. Speaking would have robbed you of that insight. Silence gave it to you. Think about negotiations. The most skilled negotiators know the value of silence. When an offer is placed on the table and they don't respond right away, the other side often scrambles to adjust, to sweeten the deal, to justify their position. That silence forces movement without you lifting a finger. The same applies in everyday life. When someone criticizes you and you don't rush to defend yourself, their words hang in the air, and the more they linger, the more people see the truth of where those words are coming from. Silence puts the spotlight back on the speaker, not on you. There's also a deeper level of listening that silence allows. When you're not speaking, you're observing. You notice body language, tone, timing, inconsistencies. People reveal far more than they realize if you're quiet enough to catch it. You see the hesitation before they answer, the way their voice changes when they're hiding something, the nervous movements they make when they're unsure. Speaking fills your mind with your own thoughts. Silence clears the way to notice theirs. In this way, silence doesn't just reveal others. It sharpens your awareness and teaches you how to read the unspoken. Silence also reveals strength. Most people believe authority comes from dominating a room with words, but true authority often comes from restraint. When you stay silent, you command curiosity. People begin to wonder what you're thinking, why you're not rushing to speak, and what you know that they don't. That mystery amplifies your presence. The less you say, the more people lean in to hear it when you finally do decide to speak. Silence transforms your words into something scarce, and scarcity creates value. Another thing silence reveals is intent. If someone is genuine, their words will stand strong without you challenging them. But if someone is manipulative or dishonest, silence becomes their undoing. They expect pushback, and when they don't get it, they keep talking, keep revealing, until they trip over their own lies. Your silence lets the truth rise on its own, without you needing to argue or prove it. That's why silence isn't passive, it's active. It's a deliberate decision to let people expose themselves. The most important revelation silence gives, however, is about yourself. It shows you that you don't need to chase validation with words. You don't need to explain yourself endlessly or constantly prove your worth. When you practice silence, you discover your own strength in stillness. You realize that control, insight, and authority don't always come from speaking louder or faster. They come from speaking less, observing more, and knowing exactly when your voice will have the most impact. Control is shown by restraint, not volume, because true strength is never about how loud you can be or how much noise you can make. It's about how well you can master yourself when everything around you is testing your patience. The loudest person in the room is often the weakest. They raise their voice, they over-explain, they dominate the air with words not because they are confident, but because they are insecure. They think that volume equals power, but in reality, volume often exposes a lack of control. Restraint, on the other hand, is quiet, steady, and undeniable. When you can hold back, when you can stay composed under pressure, you demonstrate a level of mastery that no amount of shouting can ever equal. Think about the people you respect the most. Chances are, it isn't the one who constantly interrupts, argues, or insists on having the final word. It's the one who speaks with intention, who doesn't need to yell to command attention, and who remains calm even when others lose their temper. That calmness is restraint, and restraint signals authority. It shows that no matter what's happening, you are not being dragged down by it. You are in charge of yourself, and because of that, people instinctively trust and respect you more. Restraint doesn't mean silence all the time, but it does mean discipline. It means knowing when your words add value and when they only add noise. It means recognizing that not every challenge needs a fight, not every insult deserves a reply, and not every opinion needs to be voiced. The ability to walk away, to remain quiet, to wait, or to simply observe is not weakness, it's control. It's the understanding that your energy is finite and you will not waste it where it doesn't matter. When people lose their restraint, they lose their power. Anger, defensiveness, or desperation all come through when someone cannot control themselves. The moment you let someone else's actions dictate your reaction, you hand them control over you. But when you choose restraint, when you decide that no one else gets to pull you out of alignment, you take that control back. You set the terms. You show that your emotions are not up for sale to the highest bidder who can provoke you. In professional spaces, restraint is often the difference between being seen as a leader or just another participant. A leader doesn't need to raise their voice to be heard. Their presence, their steadiness, and their careful choice of words make people listen. When others shout over each other in a meeting, the one who waits, listens, and then delivers a precise, calm statement is the one remembered. That is the power of restraint. It amplifies your impact because it shows that you are deliberate, not impulsive. In personal relationships, restraint protects peace. Arguments often escalate not because of the issue itself, but because both sides keep raising their voices, throwing out words they later regret. The one who practices restraint, the one who listens, pauses, and refuses to meet fire with fire, has the ability to de-escalate, to shift the tone, and to maintain dignity even when emotions are high. It is easy to lose control when provoked. It takes real strength to remain composed. Restraint also frees you from regret. How many times have you wished you hadn't said something in the heat of the moment, that you had just stayed quiet or responded differently? Restraint prevents those moments from happening. It creates space between impulse and action, giving you the chance to choose wisely. That is where control lies. In the pause, in the decision to act later rather than react now. Control is shown by restraint, not volume, because anyone can yell, anyone can overreact, anyone can let their emotions take over. But not everyone can hold back. Not everyone can stay composed when tested. Restraint is rare, and that rarity is what makes it powerful. It's the mark of someone who doesn't just talk about strength, but actually embodies it.